legislation.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to testify today. I appreciate Chairman Harper's work on the committee and also Chairman Freeman. I will say that this issue has been on the minds of many here for quite a few years. Representative Grove, I know, has tried to deal with this topic also, and we're working to try to create legislation that's going to help our municipalities statewide. Last session, I had introduced a bill to deal with this complex issue. Auditor General D. Pasquale had put out a report, and we thought that it was appropriate to try to incorporate some of the changes that he wanted into municipal pension reform. Now, you know, last year we presented a bill that, as with a lot of things up here, we tried to put a bill that was out there to try to get the discussion going and to create a plan that will still provide our emergency services providers, our police, our firefighters, a very good pension plan and a very good salary, but yet respect, you know, our municipalities and our cities. Unfortunately, you know, this is a problem that you see a lot in the third-class cities where we have issues, but it does transcend that. It's many municipalities throughout the state. Rolling into this session, there was a lot of thought given into, you know, what can be done to try to help alleviate and solve this problem. And we reached out to Senator Blake, and we've had some excellent discussions with Senator Blake, Representative Grove, myself, the senator, the staffs, and we've spent a lot of time trying to come up with a bill that we could introduce both in the House and the Senate, a companion bill where, you know, last session we had differences in the way the bills, what the bills read and what was included in them. So we worked very diligently together to try to come up with a product that we thought would be a good starting point here moving forward. I know there's going to be some discussions and there's going to be debate, as Chairman Freeman said, but so we wanted to lay out a plan that we thought that was responsible, that all four caucuses would agree with, or at least find common ground. And of course, the governor also is been very interested in this issue, and you know, we're trying to get our hands around it. And of course, Senator Blake is from being from the Scranton area. I think certainly he understands just you know, the critical nature of it. And I know, even living in South Central Pennsylvania, the importance to Lancaster City and York City and just the challenges they present. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of lay out some talking points about the bill that we've been working on that we hope to introduce here very soon. And what it would do, it would create a new standard pension plan that applies to all municipalities that have pensions funded under 80%. Just wanted to start off with that, under 80% funded. It requires municipalities with pensions under 50% funded to turn control of their current plans and their standard plans over to PMRS, which is the Pennsylvania Municipal Retirement System, under 50%. And then what it would do, and this is a tough component of this bill, but it would authorize a bond using part of the foreign fire insurance tax to help pay down the unfunded liability of municipalities that are funded under 80%. You know, that's it's tough to determine the mechanism to help our municipalities, but that was what, when we thought through it, the senator and I, we thought that would be a good route to go. And then, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, it would also incorporate a number of recommendations from the Auditor General's office. I've met with the Auditor General, D. Pasquale, and you know, he had some, I thought, excellent points that he laid out, that we have some issues, and it would help to improve the sustainability of our municipal pension plans.
which is in this form. Tax form.
As far as a more detail on the bill, all municipal pensions that are funded below the 80% on the effective date of the bill will stop adding members to their current pension plans, and they will establish a new standard pension plan for all future members. Members that participate in Social Security must contribute 6% of their salary, and non-Social Security members must contribute 8% of salary. I know that's another issue that we often talk about is the Social Security issue, and that, just on background, that was included there. The employer must make an actuarially calculated contribution to the plan. They must make that contribution. Members will be vested after 10 years of service and the superannuate at 25 years of service or age 55. The plan pays out an annuity based on PMRS, the third class city code, or Act 600, whichever is applicable to that particular municipality. The final benefit will be calculated based on the member's past years of service, final salary, and a multiplier of 1.25%. Final salary is base salary and overtime capped at 10% of base salary. 10%, I know, if I'm not mistaken, Allegheny County, I think I know that we've worked on legislation in the past on that, and that's how we came up with that number at this point. If the member is in Social Security, the pension cannot exceed 50% of final salary if they're in Social Security. If the member doesn't reach 25 years of service, they can elect to receive an actuarially neutral reduced benefit. It's another way to protect and help maintain our municipal pension plans. And here's one that I know the police have reached out and we're working on, is the plan would also allow for portability between standard plans. And required member and employer contributions to be transferred to the new employer would have to occur. If the member fails to vest, the employer contributions are to be returned to the employer that have originally made the contribution. The plan also includes pre- and post-retirement surviving spouse benefits, and the plan also includes work-related disability plans for members that reach 10 years of service. The plan also would add a requirement that all pensions reduce their actuarially assumed rate of return within 1% of that used by PMRS within 10 years. Requires a step down of 10 equal amounts over the 10-year period. This is something that Senator Blake and I had discussed. You know, we can't, we're going to have to gradually kind of bring these plans into sustainability. We just can't do one shot, because I think it would be too impactful, too difficult to do. It also makes changes to how plans with 100 people choose their pension manager to make it easier for these plans to change their pension manager if they want to. More flexibility there. Requires municipalities to submit proof that they have paid their mandatory and minimum obligation to the Auditor General's office. Failure to pay the appropriate amount can result in the withholding of funds by the Auditor General until the municipality pays 120% of the amount that the municipality was supposed to pay. So we're going to make sure municipalities do, they're on the hook. They have to pay their fair share. State aid can no longer be used to pay for the administrative costs for pensions. Well, that's something we agreed upon. The following restrictions have been placed on plan changes. Plans cannot be changed in such a fashion that would bring the funding level under 80%. And any changes made through collective bargaining cannot bring a plan below 80%. Municipalities that are already under 80% funded must get approval from the Auditor General's office before they can make those changes. All municipalities must certify that they are using generally accepted accounting principles outlined by our Governmental Accounting Standards Board. I mean, I think I would think most are doing that now, but we were just making sure that that's, put into the bill. Every year, a municipality must disclose as part of their annual budget report the following: an itemization of the administration fees that are included, the mandatory minimum obligation payment amount, and any other pension-related expenses. It also prohibits members of pension plans from participating in drop programs going forward, something we had discussed. As far as the severely distressed municipal pensions that would be the pensions that have a funding ratio under 50% on the effective date of this act, shall have, as I said before, shall have to turn control of their pensions over to PMRS. And it authorizes severely distressed pensions to make reduced pension contributions to the first 4 years of a new standard pension plan to adjust to the new mandatory minimum obligation. Now, the issue that I know that there's going to be some questions is, switching gears, is the pension bond and how we're going to help to alleviate some of the unfunded liability problems that we have in our municipalities. Municipalities that are under 80% funded at the effective date of this legislation will no longer receive state aid. Instead, their state aid will be converted into a bond, and they will receive a one-time payment to boost their funding levels. The bond is to be issued by the Pennsylvania Economic Development Financing Authority, and the bond is to be calculated using the following formula. First, the Auditor General is to determine how many pensions below 80% funded and are eligible to receive a portion of the bond. The Auditor General will then determine how many units of state aid these pensions receive out of the foreign fire insurance tax. The number of units of state aid will determine the amount of money available to pay the bond each year. The amount of money available each year will be multiplied by 30 to determine the maximum amount of the bond. And this will include fees and costs associated with issuance of the bond. After the bond is purchased, each municipality that is eligible shall receive their portion of the bond based on how many units of state aid they would have received. Any money that a municipality receives from the bond must be deposited in the appropriate pension accounts and cannot be used for administrative costs or fees. And finally, it would require all pensions that receive part of the bond shall use 50% of any reduction in their mandatory minimum obligation payment to pay down their unfunded liability until they reach 80% funded. As I said, there's been a lot of thought and discussion that has gone into this proposed piece of legislation. Senator Blake's been great to work with on this, and we know we have an issue statewide, and we are trying to get our hands around it, and I know that it affects quite a few municipalities moving forward, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And I know, as you said before, Senator Blake may be here. I know that he had an emergency, but if there's any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks, Chairman.